Have you ever wondered why your depth makes people uncomfortable? Why the more you think, the more you feel like you don't belong? Why your silence, your questions, your refusal to go along with shallow expectations causes others, especially women, to pull away, criticize, or misunderstand you? There's a quote from Kierkegaard that goes, "People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. But you think." And that's exactly the issue. You're not seen as a threat because you're aggressive or loud. You're a threat because you can't be predicted. And in a world that confuses predictability with safety, being unpredictable, being thoughtful, is threatening. Modern relationships aren't built on truth. They're built on comfort. But a thinking man? He's allergic to illusion. He sees through the masks people wear. He senses when something feels off. He can tell when someone's words don't match their eyes. And that makes people nervous. Kierkegaard once said, "The crowd is untruth." And when a man decides not to be absorbed by the crowd, when he chooses solitude, reflection, meaning, he disrupts the entire foundation society relies on to keep people emotionally obedient. See, women don't fear intelligent men because they're intelligent. They fear them because they can't contain them. The intelligent man doesn't need to be praised to feel worthy. He doesn't seek approval to feel like a man. He doesn't play a character just to be liked. And he certainly doesn't chase validation disguised as love. When an intelligent man does love, he does so with piercing clarity. It's not about comfort, it's about truth. And that kind of love? It's not easy. It's intense. It's real. And real love makes people nervous. That presence, sharp, aware, honest, is rare. And people often reject what they don't understand before they ever get the chance to respect it. Now, Kierkegaard didn't see despair the way most people do. He called it the sickness unto death, a man being disconnected from his true self without even realizing it. And that's the fear modern culture has toward men, that they might actually wake up, stop performing, and start thinking for themselves. Because a conscious man is impossible to control. He can't be manipulated by flattery. He doesn't chase applause. He's not moved by emotional drama. And when he stops needing to be liked, he becomes powerful. When he becomes powerful, he becomes dangerous, not to individuals, but to the entire system built on performance and pretense. So ask yourself, why do you feel misunderstood? Why does your silence make people uneasy? It's because most people, especially in this attention-hungry world, define themselves by being seen. But the intelligent man? He defines himself by seeing. And seeing clearly? That makes people uncomfortable, especially when they're trying to hide. Kierkegaard said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." And the intelligent man lives forward, but always watches, always analyzes, always questions the structure behind everything: power, love, emotion, seduction, fear. So what happens when a man stops chasing illusions? When he's no longer mesmerized by games? He becomes unplayable. Not because he's cold, but because he's whole. And that threatens today's dating economy. An economy where confusion is currency. Where emotional unpredictability gets mistaken for passion. Where love is often about roles, not reality. Kierkegaard knew this. He walked away from the only woman he ever loved. Not out of indifference, but out of integrity. Because he understood that living authentically sometimes means rejecting the roles others try to assign you, even if that costs you everything. Men, hear this. The more aware you become, the lonelier you might feel. But that's not a flaw. That's the price of waking up. You're not intimidating because you're harsh. You're intimidating because you're untrained. And an untrained man, one who hasn't been conditioned to chase approval, is impossible to puppet. And the world doesn't like what it can't puppet. Most people aren't searching for love. They're looking for someone to be useful. Provider, protector, entertainer, puppet, fill a role. But the intelligent man sees through that. He steps outside the system. And when he does, he becomes invisible to those still trapped inside it. Kierkegaard called this the leap of faith, leaving behind roles and expectations and walking alone, choosing truth over comfort, choosing clarity even if it hurts. And yes, it will cost you. It'll cost you comfort, popularity, maybe even love. But what you gain? That's where real power lies. Because once you see, you can unsee. And once your intelligence is rooted in self-awareness, not just knowledge, you stop seeking validation. You start seeking purpose, meaning, maybe even God. And that terrifies people. Hell, sometimes it terrifies you. Because what comes next is not safe. It's not easy, but it's real. Kierkegaard once said, "To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself." And the truth is, most men have already lost themselves, not because they're not smart, but because they were trained to apologize for being smart. You were told to soften your language, to dull your insight, to laugh when things are fake, smile when things are shallow, stay silent when something feels wrong, be agreeable, even if it kills your truth. But acceptance that requires you to kill your essence isn't acceptance. It's assimilation. And when a man refuses to assimilate, he becomes a threat. Not just to women, but to everyone who benefits from his silence. You make people nervous not because you're loud, but because you're clear. You don't flatter, you see. And to be truly seen is terrifying for anyone still hiding behind a mask. Most people don't want deep connection. They want emotional comfort. They want someone to reinforce their illusions, not someone who tears them down. But the intelligent man doesn't play along, especially not in love. Because love, to him, isn't a fantasy. It's not a power struggle. It's not a roleplay of childhood wounds. It's truth. And truth doesn't always feel good. It feels real. That's why you get resistance. That's why people misunderstand you. Because your clarity threatens the game they've spent years playing. You don't beg. You don't chase. You don't explain yourself 100 times just to be understood. You walk away, not out of anger, but because your soul refuses to be sold. And that kind of man, calm, rooted, sovereign, is more dangerous than any bully. Because he doesn't react. He chooses. And choosing, consciously and unapologetically, is the last true rebellion left.